Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Zeeshan Usmani. I am in beautiful Hajj in Colombo, Sri Lanka, and I am sitting with my very dear friend Jeevan Yanam. We are going to discuss. Hey Jeevan.
Hi.
We are going to discuss what happened in Sri Lanka in terms of default. When Sri Lanka default on its payment, Pakistan is going to on the same trajectory. We might be going to default in few weeks time anyway. So I wanted to learn the lessons, what we can learn from Sri Lanka, what we can do right now, either to be safe from default, or if it happens, then know what a normal person, a common man can do to save. So I'm giving the mic to Jeevan, and we'll ask Jeevan, just narrate the whole saga of the default from the eyes of a common man and from the eyes of a business owner. Okay.
Sure. Thanks, Zeeshan. Thanks for having me. I think it's timely to have this discussion because I hear Pakistan is going to go through a very similar story. But looking back 2.5 years, we started seeing the first kind of cracks during COVID because Sri Lanka's borrowing started going up, and there was kind of unwise spending from the government. Of course, they did spend for the vaccine, which is all important, but they weren't cutting down on their spending. So the GDP to debt ratio is one kind of metric. It's not the only metric to look at, but it's one of the metrics that you should look at. And I think we went from 80% to 113%. Wow. And if you look at that, what that meant was for every dollar that we earned, we were paying 90% of that back in terms of interest expense, right? So that made it very unsustainable, and at the same time, we had what's like a populist government trying to say, okay, we'll give you what you want, and people just wanted not to pay taxes. Because of that, it came into a very unsustainable situation, and people started questioning, hey, can Sri Lanka actually pay back its debt, right? And once those questions got asked in kind of foreign markets, the answer was no, and which led to kind of the default and people losing faith in the Sri Lankan economy.
Okay. What happened before the default? Like, we have the pundits, economic pundits, naysayers. Oh, don't worry, we are all set, we are all good, nothing is going to happen for the country for next 100 years. What happened to the petrol prices? What happened to the medicine? What happened to the bread prices for a common man? Was it any change? Was it any inflation? What happened to the interest rate and the depreciation of the Sri Lankan rupees?
So at that time, the rupee versus dollar was actually pegged. So we were kind of keeping it at like 200 rupees to $1. But suddenly there was a black market that kind of grew, where the true kind of where the rupee should be versus the dollar, the difference started really becoming big. So I think I remember at one point the official rate was 1 to 200, and people were buying in the black market or buying dollars and trying to take it abroad at 1 to 300, like almost 33% more. So then because of that, everyone was like, this is unsustainable. Everyone wanted to buy dollars because everyone knew that there was going to be a crash, and people weren't really, and that kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because the central bank at that time didn't release the dollar to kind of free float. And I think that's maybe a learning for Pakistan as well. I don't know where you're currently at, but if you don't kind of release that, that could just lead to further worsening things. And now the rupee to dollar is about 360. But now because they released it, the difference between the black market and the actual rupee is about the same. So what that meant, obviously, for the common person. And just going back, there's some other unwise decisions which exacerbated the problem in Sri Lanka. One is the president decided to go for a not to import fertilizer, and tried to go for immediate what is it?
Organic farming.
Organic farming.
Yeah, no
Sorry.
GMO.
Yeah, no GMO.
Yeah.
Noble intentions, but I don't think anyone has done that overnight.
Yeah.
And I think that led to a decrease in productivity, especially at the agriculture, and kind of worsened our food security, which meant then prices for things started going up rapidly. Food, essentials. You couldn't import medicine. Not much medicine is manufactured here. So everything, the cost suddenly went up, kind of double or triple, right? Even basic needs like medicine, even et cetera, became very, very expensive and unaffordable to the common person. So I hope that doesn't happen to you guys. But yeah, that's what happened to us.
We are on similar trajectory. We have the DAR paid, and dollar was kept on a value. Now is going, to the sky. In Sri Lanka, the petrol prices went from 80 rupees to 400 rupees. Up bread would go from 35 rupees to 200 rupees. 4 miles long lines of queues to getting the gas from the petrol pumps is crazy. Do you think there is a hope in sight? Like, IMF did not give you the money, so it's not a doomsday. I come here, we can go here and there, we can eat. So how did you survive? Who helped?
I think we were very lucky to have some good donors like India, Japan, etc., who have long kind of relationships with the country. They were able to release some money to us to kind of manage. I think with the IMF coming in, they said it's going to happen in March, and we're all kind of hopeful that it will happen. And I think it more or less is hopeful. There are a few countries who have not completely agreed on the terms, but I think that's a matter of time, because it would make no sense not to agree to the terms, because they would not get anything at the end of the day if we go into a worse situation. So your question was,
how did you survive?
How did we survive? I think it's very much just cutting back on things, right? A lot of people kind of gave up maybe the luxuries and focused on the essentials, and I think that kind of brought people to the thing. But of course, there's also going to be now increased taxes, which is going to further hurt people, because it's going to go to a government. If you're in the early stages of this, I would implore you guys to talk to your government and say cut spending, right? So that harsher taxes might not get put in. You guys can kind of still go, and you guys have 180 million people, right?
230.
230. Well, okay, so 230 million people. We only have a population of 22. So so I think if you can speak to your government and say and remove some of the ineffectiveness that's there. I think someone said Sri Lanka has a government servant to population ratio of 1:20, and India has it 1:279. Like, look at that ratio, because the governments tend not to be effective in their spending, etc. So maybe you want to kind of try and cut down government spending. I think is a big part of the problem.
Okay, thank you, Jeevan. Guys, situation here is still not very gloomy. A person cannot withdraw more than $300 a week from his own bank account. Doesn't matter how much money you have in the account. Going through a tough time, we are hopeful that Sri Lanka will sooner or later come out of this miserable position, and we are hoping for Pakistan that Pakistan should not go into this position. If it goes, it's a very, very bad situation. So that's it for now. Thank you, Jeevan. Thank you so much for helping us out. We'll bring you more podcasts in future. Thank you very much for listening to me. This is yours, Zeeshan Usmani. Thank you.